Hi, I'm Christopher, and again, as always, thank you and welcome to the set of Love's Child, where we are dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, in education, in entertainment, and in empowering stories. Our topic for today is, what's love got to do with it? What we're going to discuss are issues that affect lesbian relationships, homosexual relationships, gay singles, and lesbian singles. But before we do that, we're going to give a little warm up and just talk about some general things. Did you all see? We're recording from Atlanta, Georgia, and one of the biggest news issues here, I'm sure it's probably nationwide by now, but one of the things that's being discussed in the news is the rape and killing, or I think they're calling it the sexual assault and killing of a young girl on the south side of Atlanta. Are you all familiar with that?
In Canton. In Canton. Mm-hmm.
Well,
7-year-old girl abducted from the playground, taken and brutally assaulted, viciously murdered, and actually her funeral service was today, this afternoon. It's a 7-year-old girl.
It was sad. It's saddening to say the least. I mean, I've heard this story on many other news shows. It's always disheartening when anyone dies, but it's especially disheartening when a young child's life is taken, especially in a heinous way as it was. From what I understand, from what I heard, I haven't read anything, and obviously I wasn't privy to the first-hand news, but they said that she was cut in addition to being molested or sexually assaulted, and then dumped in a trash canister. Sad event.
What they was talking about on the radio, they was saying that, of course, immediately the lady, 2 other children were taken into custody or whatever. And they was, already they talking about neglect and those type of things that they were trying to say. The girl was being babysat by like a 13-year-old or something like that at the time when she was abducted. And so they was just saying like, they feel like the mother, was a form of neglection. But I mean, a 13-year-old is actually the legal age to babysit. So like,
you mean legal was responsible? Is that a legal age?
I think it's the legal age. I think 13-year-old you're legally able to babysit. I don't think,
Because there is an age that you cannot be left alone in the house.
Yeah. So I think 13-year-olds are allowed to watch and be responsible. But is it neglect? I mean, is it the mother's fault that someone or a predator came after her child?
That's what I'm saying, because this is oftentimes what happens is that they make other issues, or what I should say is that rather than dealing with the direct issue, they start to talk about things that are unrelated to the direct issue. The issue is not about whether the mother was responsible, whether the babysitter was of age or responsible, but it's about what the predator did to a child. You know what I'm saying? It's sad, and that's where the focus should be, in my opinion, on the predator and his offense.
Well, that happens a lot in criminal cases. If it's a rape case, then it's an issue of why were you there that time of night? What were you wearing? Why would you go off with him or her? Because there are female rapists. Or in this case, what kind of mother was this? And the reality is, it doesn't matter what kind of mother she was as it relates to this. You have a predator who has done something vicious, and that's what we really need to focus on. And I guess my question, though, is what do you think should be done to the perpetrator? Like, what do you think should happen to this dude?
It's funny that you would say that. You want to say something, B? It's funny that you would say that, because I always, as I said in our first introductory spiel, is that I have a master's in criminal justice, so I've read through my education or through achieving my master's, I read a bunch of case stories and everything. And I've always been very sympathetic, if you will, to a certain degree, or maybe I should say empathetic, of the incarcerate's position. Now understand this, I'm not condoning or excusing an offender or an ex-offender's offense. But what I am saying is that I believe that when these offenders are caught in acts, when they are tried by jury and everything, that I feel like they should receive some sort of help. My background is in psychology, so I'm always pushing for, well, let's do a psychological assessment. Let's find out what's going on with the person. I don't believe in this thing like we should lock the person up and throw away the key. I definitely don't believe in the death sentence or the what is it called? Not death sentence, but
Death penalty.
The death penalty. I don't believe in it. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it does anything for the offender, and I definitely don't believe that it does anything for the recidivism rate, or it doesn't prevent other persons from committing heinous crimes like the ones that have been perpetuated. So what I would do is that I believe that the person should be incarcerated. I think that they should have some psychological assessment done. I think they need some counseling, and we need to try to correct the behavior, try to understand what's going on with the individual rather than just simply locking them up, throwing away the key. That's my thought.
But my question is, what's the degree? Like, is that, do everybody get that? Like, is that just the basis? Like, okay, if you're dealing with the case that she was just raped, do the rapists get the same assessment as you say, the same treatment, the same psychological evaluation, the same? Not that they don't deserve it, but what about he raped, murdered, stabbed, chopped up? You know, like, what is the degree of that? Like, you know, should they all get the same? Like, you don't believe in the death penalty, we automatically know 25 to life is, you know, what you call that, like the default sentence for most people in those type of situations.
Or life sentence, right.
So, but, I mean, the crimes are different. Some of them are way worse. So shouldn't the punishment be different? Like, so that's what, I mean, I'm not saying that I agree with the death penalty at all, I don't. But what's the degree of different crimes? Like, we just went from rape to chop up and throw in the, you know, the alley. I mean, they both horrible crimes, but they, you know, one is way severer than the other. So how do you separate as far as punishment?
Go ahead, David's going to say something.
The information that I've gathered pertaining to this matter is, first of all, the family of the young man who they say was the person that the predator was, they don't think that he was capable of doing this act. So you have to be certain that you have the right person, and it goes along with your investigating or whatever to make sure, because there's so many people that sit behind bars that are innocent. So they be so quick to react to pick somebody randomly and say this is the person, just to say, you know, to prove their case and just say the end. But we have someone's life on both ends that's in jeopardy. You know what I'm saying? You can't bring the person, the little girl, you know what I'm saying? My prayer goes out to her for what has happened to her, because she didn't deserve it. But are we certain that we have the right person to try before a judge? You know what I'm saying?
And that's a good question, because I distinctly remember that with the Centennial Olympic Park bombing and the bombing of the other side. And the guy, Richard Jewell, who was like the first responder to the bomb, became accused of planting the bomb. And what ended up happening that summer was news media was camped out on his doorstep. So it was difficult for him to go in and out of his own home. And then, of course, every Yahoo that went to school with him came before the news media. Oh yeah, I knew something was wrong. He was strange back then. He lost his job. All this stuff happened to him, and he turned out to really have only been a good Samaritan. Somebody else planted the bombs, and he eventually died. But yeah, do we have the right person? But I think there's always something to be said about addressing the issues, and I know it's not popular, but addressing the issues of the perpetrator. So when I think about Eddie Long, Sandusky at Penn State, the Catholic priest, my question becomes in issues of sexual assault and molestation, like what happened in the lives of these individuals that ran unchecked, that allowed them to allegedly do the crimes that they've been accused of.
That's my point. That's exactly what my thinking is to entertain Tariq's question, is that I think that in a sense, and I'm not trying to make the entire world into victims, we all suffered from something in life. We've all endured some sort of hardship. And so my thinking is this, is that there are reasons behind every person's actions. Now, we can't always justify the reason, say, okay, this is right why this person did this, or this is right why that person does it. Actually, when you want to be technical about it, or according to me, my own belief, is that I feel like that should be really left up to the Creator, that sort of judgment, if you will. But when I think about the different offenses that we as people commit, I feel like there's a reason behind all of it, all of the offenses, and I feel like we have a responsibility to understand and uncover those reasons. So if the person is a kleptomaniac, for instance, they can't help themselves, they're always stealing something. Well, we need to trace back, give this person a psychological assessment, and trace back to exactly why this person is stealing. It may not just simply be, oh, this person just wants to steal because they enjoy stealing. It may be because they may have been born or raised in poverty, and they're stealing to survive, so they can have food on their tables, they can put clothes on their backs as well as their family's back, or whatever the reason may be. In these instances of these more heinous crimes, these different murders and serial murders and rapists and everything, I think that we owe them the same thing that we owe the persons who commit, if you will, lesser offenses, those smaller offenses. I think that we need to delve into, like, why are you committing this offense? What happened in your life where you think that this is all right or not? One of the things that you just mentioned, I think, was an excellent thought to me, is that most times, more times than not, with perpetrators, they're often, and I'm talking about sexual perpetrators, that is, they're often most times they've been violated by someone else in their life. So in a sense, they too are victims. So they're victimizing someone else sexually because they were victimized. And see, what we oftentimes do is we just say, okay, this person, this male in most cases, violated this young girl or this young boy, let's castrate the person, let's lock them up and never allow them to be out, or let's kill them in some cases. Well, there's a reason behind why this person committed this offense. And again, as I said, to piggyback my own thought, is that they've been victimized themselves. And it seems like it's an injustice, in my mind, to further penalize this person, if that's the correct word I'll use, but to further penalize the person who's committing this heinous event when he himself was victimized himself. So let's get to the root of the problem and try to understand that, and not necessarily, as I said, condone it or say this is all right, it's sweeping under the rug or whatever, but give this person some treatment. Treat this person. That's my thought.
But even with that, because I totally agree, but the first thing that's going to happen when you go down that road is they're going to take, like, say if this guy, this rapist, give us his story. His mother was a crackhead. His father molested him. And so, this institution, American institution, they're going to find the next person who mother was a crackhead, his father molested him, that didn't do the crime. Mm-hmm. And so it will always be, well, why did you take this role? So even if you do the assessment and find out what's wrong and come out with the results that his mother was a crackhead, his father molested him, then but why did you do it and the person who just went down the same road didn't do it? Mm-hmm. And then it's no way that you could ever really come up with some type of reason to that, I don't think. And at the same token, even if you do all that, I agree, we need to find out why these killers, if we ever want to stop it. But going back to the question still, then once you find out the reasons why, what's the punishment? I mean, do you just, once you understand a murderer, you understand a rapist, then what? I mean, I can understand you, but you still have to be held accountable. And so, then what? Like, once we take all this time to figure out why you this way, then what's your punishment? You know what I'm saying? That's why I feel like, what can society do to separate crime? Like, I don't, like you said, some people are innocent, some people didn't do as much as the other. I don't think everybody should get the same thing, but almost, I don't think they should. But how can you change that, really?
I do believe, we want to say something? I do believe this, and to conclude this, and so we can go into our next segment, I do believe that there should be some degree of punishment, if you will, by our standards, some degree of punishment. I don't think that every crime should fit, or every punishment should fit this, every crime. I do believe there should be some degree of punishment. I do believe that, in addition to that these persons need to be removed from society. I'm not saying that once they commit these heinous offenses, they just get a psychological assessment and they're released back into society. No, I believe that they do need to be removed from society. I don't know if necessarily putting them in a 4x6 or a 9x12 cell will remedy the situation. They probably, and in more cases than not, need to be in some sort of psychiatric institution, and they need to be there for a specific period of time. I don't know if that's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or whatever, but I just don't simply think that our solution to our problems is killing someone, giving them, sentencing them to death, or just simply incarcerating them in a warehouse is what often is the case when persons are incarcerated. So with that, what we would like for you all to do is to answer questions or ask us questions about the topic we just discussed. What should predators, or what should be the crime for persons who will commit these heinous offenses? So should they be, let off scot-free? Should they receive mandatory prison sentence? Should they be admitted to a psychological institution, or what? Tell us what you all think. And moving from there, we're going to go into our topic for today. What's love got to do with it? And for you all that don't know, a big thing in gay, and my thinking is, I always say gay relationships. When I say gay, for me it's interchangeable with male and female homosexual relationships, but just for the purposes of this show, I'm going to make the differentiation. So gay relationships pertain to males, and lesbian relationships obviously pertain to females. So in gay and lesbian relationships, there seem to be a host of issues in the relationships. Now, there are many healthy gay and lesbian relationships, but there are also some that are unhealthy, just as there are unhealthy heterosexual relationships. What we want to discuss are the reasons behind the unhealthy issues in the gay and lesbian relationships. Now, as we delve into this is my thought. I think that because heterosexuality is the norm here in America, I think that oftentimes gays and lesbians mirror their relationships after heterosexual relationships. And I think because we're dealing with same-sex persons, I think that sometimes you have to take that into account, that you can't have a same-sex relationship can't be necessarily mirrored or uses the same standard as a heterosexual relationship, because there are different persons involved. In the homosexual relationship, it's persons of the same gender, and heterosexual, it's persons of different genders, male and female. So, what do you all think, first of all, are the issues in gay relationships or lesbian relationships, or do you all think that there are issues in gay and lesbian relationships?
Well, I certainly think there are issues. I'm clear on that piece. But one of the things that I do think, let me say this. I think it's important to know that we did invite a lesbian couple here. Mm-hmm. They just weren't able to make it. So for those of you who might be wondering why 4 men are going to talk around or over lesbians, that there was an invitation extended to our sisters.
Right.
So, hold your letter right. No, but I think one of the issues is that when you grow up in a homophobic society, it has the capacity to damage your self-concept and your self-esteem. And if I am unhealthy, that means that we are unhealthy. So no matter what you do, if you get in a relationship with me and I am unhealthy, it's going to be an unhealthy relationship. And so I think one of the major issues is the self-esteem and self-concept and some of the self-value that we hold in our community. How much of who we are we're willing to sacrifice because we really don't fully embrace our value in who we are.
Okay. You have something to say, Terry?
I mean, I totally agree with that, and just going back to like you said about being in a heterosexual society, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I think, with homosexual relationships, lesbian and gay, is like you said, trying to mimic that type of society, trying to mimic what man and woman is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And to me, it really is a big issue, and it's really a big issue for me, watching it and experiencing it, you know, the whole, if I gotta be the man, you have to be the woman, right. Even a lesbian couple, I have to be the man, you have to be a woman. But I mean, if you wanted that type of situation to that degree that you go out of your way to make it be that kind of way, then why not choose that? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a gay male in a gay relationship. I don't want to be in a relationship where it feel like you're the female acting male and I'm the male acting male, or vice versa. My thing is that's not what I wanted it to be. That's why I'm gay, because obviously I want to be with another male, and I want us to create our own path. You know, homosexuality is an alternative lifestyle, and I think we should really treat it as such. I mean, I believe in, we need to integrate, and if we want to be accepted, we need to act more like them. That's, I think, what they want us to believe. I think that that's what they want us to believe. Like, if they can accept a lesbian couple if one lesbian is butch and the other lesbian is feminine, that makes sense to them. If it's two Lisa Rays walking around saying they're in love with each other, got a daughter, then that's weird.
Right.
But you know what? I don't think people have a problem with two Lisa Rays.
I think they would though.
I don't think people have. I think people have a problem with two
studs.
Yes, because I was getting ready to use another term.
Can
I
I
don't want
say,
to get beat up.
Do we need to, I'm sorry, just to interject this. So, if you all don't know the terminology for our heterosexual persons or viewers, a stud is a more masculine female in the lesbian relationship, and I believe a femme is the feminine version or
And
feminine
still is somewhere in the middle. I just learned that.
All right. But I think it's okay for lipstick lessons because of how we view women in general. So historically, it's always been okay for women to trot off to the bathroom together. Women have always been able to walk down the street holding hands without folk raising eyebrows, as long as they present as ladies.
Right.
So I don't think that there's an issue with the two Lisa Rays because there's all kinds of porn built around that. I think what I really think is that there's the issue of a woman who appears to be too masculine, or men who appear to be too feminine. And so I think we have an issue with blurring what we believe to be strict gender lines.
And just piggybacking on that, but to a certain degree, of course, they like two Lisa Rays from a sexual standpoint. That's what they want to see. They believe, but
male heterosexuals.
Yeah, male heterosexuals. Yeah, they don't have a problem with it as far as on that level. But to really believe two women who Lisa Ray that don't want a man, who really love each other, want to marry each other, be with each other, have children with each other, they have a problem with that.
And that's
they have a problem with that being a real relationship.
Okay, I
Like, just going to the club, making out, I've had my lesbian experience, that's okay. But to be a real lesbian in a real relationship and committed with another quote unquote lipstick, they're like, well, wait a minute, that's two fine women.
Right.
That don't go together. A man will accept a stud and a woman. I think, now maybe women, I'm not saying, I think they will accept it because they don't want the stud. And so they're like, oh, she got her. And, they accept it, to me, more so because, like you said, they look down upon the stud. And to a certain, it's blurred, like you said, it's blurred, kind of, sort of. But I definitely think two Lisa Rays isn't supposed, in a heterosexual male eyes, isn't supposed to be together forever and have raise their own family. No, they both going to marry.
just hope they don't start acting.
I don't have a really informed opinion because I don't know a lot of lesbians. That's one thing, I don't know a lot of lesbians. And then secondly, I don't know a lot of lesbian couples. So most of my information is coming from the lesbians that I've known over my lifetime. What I do know, though, is about homosexual or gay relationships, gay male relationships, and what you're saying is true, specifically regarding gay males. I know that because I know my own relationships. My family has actually said this to me. If they see me with any of my partners of the past, I'm single now, but any of my partners in the past, they always say, well, who's doing who? They want to know who's doing who because there has to be a masculine person and a feminine person in the relationship. And so they can't accept that, like, it's maybe a versatile relationship. And for you all that don't know, versatile is, I guess that's in sexual terms, both persons are penetrating in the relationship, if you will, and it's a reciprocal relationship, to put it lightly. So they can't accept that. So I think that if there is, this is my thought regarding gay relationships, and I'm assuming that it may pertain as well to lesbian relationships, is that it seems to me like they can see in their mind, like, okay, well, this person is clearly the female in the relationship, and this person is clearly the male in the relationship. That's an interesting dynamic. I hadn't thought about that. Because we don't know much, because we don't have the lesbians on the show that we wanted to have on the show. Let's steer